I'm Louis Moroni, and this is Constraints the Podcast from Hi-Fi Handiwork, a 20-episode series. Each episode is a chat with a guest from a creative industry about a project obstacle they've experienced, viewed through the lens of project management's three constraints of scope, time, and budget. Further insights and commentary can be found in the show notes. We hope you enjoy the program. There was a time when I was much younger that I would recite the rosary with my mom before going to bed. As a second-generation Canadian with Italian parents, it's not surprising that I grew up Roman Catholic. I went to Catholic elementary school and high school and received all of the Catholic rites up to and including confirmation. Today, I don't associate myself with any church or religion and haven't for decades. My mom, who had been a Eucharistic minister when I was younger, herself stopped going to church after a disagreement she had with our priest about why women couldn't be ordained. I share all of this because I generally find that people's relationship with religion is complicated. As a system of beliefs, practices, and worldviews, each religion claims to represent the truth for all humans, and yet there are many different religions with many different sects within them. So, is just one of them the true religion, or are they all different ways of describing the same truth? I certainly don't expect that these are questions that can be answered here, but it does draw attention to another truth that is undeniable. That throughout history and across the world, it has been the challenge of every religion to express its system of beliefs, practices, and worldviews in a way that can be understood across time and space by people of varied backgrounds and experiences. So without questioning the truth that each religion claims to possess, we can still acknowledge that the translation of that truth is an ever-evolving and delicate task. And just as we have already discovered on this podcast that the creative industries exists within even the most operational and structured organizations in the form of internal departments like research and development, marketing, and strategic planning, so too must all churches have a similar capacity for creativity to make its truth understood to its adherents across time and space. Who knows? If my mom's conversation with that priest so many decades ago had gone differently, she may have continued on with the church instead of embracing Joseph Campbell and becoming a Reiki master. As we continue to understand the nature of creative industries through unique avenues, I am excited for my conversation with today's guest. As the minister for Streetsville United Church in Mississauga since 2022, he tries to lead the various facets of the church by three principles: authenticity, passion, and grace. He has a rich background growing up and being ordained in central Pennsylvania. He is a musician and outdoorsman with a bachelor's degree in psychology and Spanish and a master's in divinity. He has also worked in theater tech, labor organizing, campus ministry, hospice chaplaincy, and landscaping. I am looking forward to understanding his truth through an eclectic and creative discussion worthy of his accomplishments and experiences. So, without further ado, Reverend Joe Hopkins, welcome to Constraints.
Thank you so much, Louis.
Okay, so let's jump right in. What's the obstacle that you had in mind coming to the podcast today?
Streetsville United Church is in this suburban city, which by its own right in most of Canada would be a huge city, Mississauga, Ontario. But it's right next to Toronto, and it has seen incredible change over the last 30 years, especially. And Streetsville United Church predates the city of Mississauga by about 150 years, but the congregation has been part of the community since the very beginning. And now we are facing this incredible challenge of adapting to a cultural reality in which we have neighbors from all around the world, but mostly from majority world contexts. Yet Streetsville United Church comes from a sort of Anglo-mono culture, which was, fine pre-1970, but we're having to adapt to reach our neighbors from a lot of different cultural contexts today.
When you say, I'm sorry, when you say reach our neighbors, do you mean sort of bring them into the congregation, or what does that mean?
We both want to reach out to our neighbors and meet them where they are. And yeah, we do hope that our neighbors come inside our walls and take part in our faith community, which especially happens on Sunday mornings. So much of our community life happens as part of and around our weekly worship service that takes place on Sunday mornings. But it's when we talk about engaging neighbors, hopefully it's both bringing people in and the established members going beyond our walls, beyond our property, and sharing our beliefs, our teachings, our way of life with people well beyond our property.
So, in terms of a project, if I was going to describe this as a project, your project that we're talking about is essentially the project of outreach, and if not sort of bringing people in, I guess connecting with people within. I mean, there must be other churches within that sort of share the same geography as you. Churches
So
that
many churches,
do.
so many churches, but also mosques and temples. And there's a Buddhist monastery not too far away. There's so much religious diversity in Streetsville and just beyond.
And do you, as the leader of your congregation, have a relationship with those other churches?
Some. I mean, it totally depends on what kind of church. The United Church of Canada, in general, is more on the liberal side of Christianity. If you can imagine a kind of a theological spectrum going from very conservative, like we will uphold the teachings of the church that were laid down hundreds if not thousands of years ago, to churches like the United Church that exist a more pluralistic approach in which we want to respect people of different Christian sects and totally different religions in ways of like mutual benefit, something that will what we Christians would call build up the kingdom or the reign of God, that is made up of beauty and justice and self-sacrificial love. But not everybody wants to cooperate with us in that kind of mission. As you said, the folks who are really into a more exclusivistic kind of faith community, well, they tend not to invite us to play with them in their spiritual sandbox. Something we are working on is to kind of, as we have a treasured song from the last 30 years in our United Church traditions called Draw the Circle Wide. And that's so much of what our project is, to draw our spiritual and community circle wider so that we are not only sharing the treasured doctrines of our faith that we've received from thousands of years worth of faithful generations, but also meeting people where they are and helping folks in their needs today, whatever that might be. We have a housing facility that abuts our property that provides housing for folks who would most likely otherwise be unhoused. A lot of them came from the streets or homeless shelters directly to this place. And so we are working to engage folks in authentic relationship while also providing them with things that they definitely didn't have when they were living on the street or in shelters. That's just one of the ways that we are trying to draw our circle wider to get to know our neighbors and establish authentic and healthy relationships with folks beyond our regular worshipers on Sunday morning.
Right. So so this is this is this imagery of the circle and drawing it wider and essentially connecting with the people within the circle. That's a really nice imagery. It sounds like there are not necessarily people that, or at least organizations that want to engage in that. So do you have a concrete sort of approach or plan with both your congregation and within your organization on how you share that circle? I like the idea of the imagery of the sandbox. Like, what does that look like? Playing, in the same sandbox with people that don't necessarily share the same religion, but share the same, let's say, ideology or truth.
Right. And maybe I'm thinking about sandbox because there's a Montessori school that rents some space in our church building, and they've just opened up their sandbox, and can look out my office window and see him playing around in that sandbox there.
Oh, you did a little bit of a Usual Suspects. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah. A little bit. I haven't know the movie, but before we can invite people to play with us in our sandbox, we've also got to figure out what we are doing, what the community's boundaries are, what the community's purpose is. So, within, if you're talking about this as a project, maybe a first step was a project of reshaping our mission and vision. Our congregation adopted a new mission and vision statement after about a year's worth of consulting the grassroots membership and adherents who are part of our community. And so we have this mission and vision statement, but just because we have words doesn't mean that we understand what they mean quite yet, let alone how to implement them. So we are working to understand what we are about for this day and age that is so radically different than the cultural context of 30 years ago. And that's taking time. That's definitely taking time. That doesn't mean we're, just hanging out with, the same 100 people week after week until we figure out what we're really about. We continue to reach out to people, our neighbors, at Cornerstone Suites and Indwell facility right next to us, and long-term care facilities, and folks who come to Streetsville for different festivals that happen. Streetsville is a really unique community within Mississauga, and so we want to share the good stuff that we already have, even if we're still figuring out what that secret sauce is that we've created. If we use this metaphor of the sandbox, we are playing in a very old sandbox. The sanctuary that we worship in week after week dates back to the 1870s, and people started gathering as a congregation back in the 1820s. So we've had to kind of reevaluate how we express our mission and our vision in a way that makes sense for today.
Right. It's very interesting. You've first of all, I had taken it out of my intro, but because it was just getting a little too long. But I was reminiscing about Vatican II in Catholicism, and which was in the 60s, and that was an attempt to sort of bring the church to modernity so that it can relate to.
Open the windows. Open the windows. Right.
Right. And so this challenge, not challenge, but sort of this process that you're going through with your strategic plan is very common across organizations. People come up with a vision statement and they imagine what they want to be in the future, but to actually implement that is really the next challenge. And in my world, that's about breaking that vision up into workable projects that contribute to that larger vision. And it's interesting that you sort of are in that phase right now of trying to really make concrete actions that translate into your final vision. Which, can you just sort of describe that a bit more in terms of, if you were completely successful in the vision that came together through your grassroots members? And how many did you say there's about 100 members in your church?
Usually we figure out how big a church we are usually by our worship attendance, which varies Sunday to Sunday. It varies from about 70 people to about 100 people on each Sunday. As you might imagine, on those big Christian holidays like Christmas and Easter, we surpass 100 folks. We're going to have a lot fewer than that over the upcoming summertime, especially as Mississauga tends to empty out as people go to cottages and so forth. But that's about what we have. I guess if everyone got together at once, then we would have probably 150 to 200 people who would say that they are part of Streetsville United Church.
Right. And how do you and I don't know if this is an appropriate question, but how do you maintain fiscally your church year over year?
So Streetsville United Church is a registered charity in Canada, and so we almost entirely subsist off of really two revenue sources. One of them is gifts from our members and adherents, and these days about 2/3 of those folks give through digital means, in a variety of digital ways. And then about the remaining third comes from renting our physical space. We have a pretty large building that we've kept up pretty well over the years, and so we are able to share that space for a pretty reasonable price with a lot of different groups in the community. One is a Montessori school. We actually have another school for students who have aged out of that. And then we have a whole range of different community groups that also rent space in our building. Those
Right.
are the two primary ways that we get our funding, but occasionally we'll get grants from United Church of Canada denomination, every once in a while from secular sources as well.
And you mentioned you put on some events which are for the community. Do you ever have, I guess what I'll say is do you ever collaborate with other churches or other places of worship in terms of hosting an event, or what does that look like? What's the actual sort of collaboration / interaction with other groups, religious groups that share your geographical circle?
So much of it comes from relationships, and I've especially gotten to know the other ministers of United Church of Canada congregations within Mississauga. There's about 10 of us in Mississauga, and we're doing something really special in just about a month now, actually. So the 100th anniversary of the establishment of the United Church of Canada is coming up on June 10th. And so the Sunday prior to that, almost all of the United Church of Canada congregations in Mississauga, so I think there's 9 of us, are coming together in one location for a big blowout celebration, worship service. But that, I don't know if you've done a lot of collaboration with a lot of different groups, but to use some other metaphors, when you start putting a whole lot of cooks in the kitchen, well, things get kind of dicey and spicy, and we'll see what exactly the product is going to be.
Wow. So this sounds really. So this is a month away, less than a month. Is June 2nd. We're recording this. It's it's a little less than a month. It's May 7th today, in 2025, for those of you who are listening in the far, far future. And so this is like, we won't get too deep into this, but this is, well, actually, as far as projects go, and actually this is a little bit of my bailiwick, because I spent over a decade managing fairly large events. But you have brought together varied groups that have different visions for what this communal event is going to be. Yeah, and I hear a plural "you" in your question right there, because it is definitely not just me. There are, I think, there's 9 different leaders who are cooperating, and we all have several. We use the word lay people, non-professional people in churches who are also very involved in the planning of this event. We have in churches, we have a weekly gathering, event kind of thing. So I do a good bit of event planning, but this is going to be different for us. It's church congregations who are well established often love their church building. And there's good reason for that. Sometimes when I go into that 150-year-old sanctuary, I can feel the prayers and the singing and the passion and the love that has soaked the very timbers that are in that space. It is a very moving space. Especially if you're into Jesus, if you're into Jesus of Nazareth. So it takes a lot to convince people to come together at a different location for some kind of big event. Now, 100 years ago, when the United Church of Canada was first established, they actually got together at a hockey arena in downtown Toronto, which I think that old building might actually be owned by Toronto Metropolitan University these days. At least I think so. It may, like so much of Toronto, it may have been torn down. Something else may have taken its place. Now we're going to be meeting in a church building, but it's only going to be it's only going to feel like home for about no more than a tenth of the people who are going to be there. And so that makes things interesting. I mean, I don't know how it is for academics or business people to have to leave the place that they think of as their home, but there's a special attachment to physical space where people worship, and it can be difficult sometimes to get a little creative and convince people that, as in Christian language, that the Spirit will move among us even when we worship in a recognize as ours. It's almost like this is a microcosm of sort of the larger theme within, I would say, religious outreach, and actually, Speaking of which, how coming back to your sort of your strategic plan or your ultimate vision that you've put together with your congregation, how does this event sort of fit in with that or relate to that? If this event is successful, does this contribute to what your larger vision is?
Gosh, I really hope so. With any event that you have, you can never know how exactly the participants are going to come away from it, or even if we can guarantee that is going to be well attended. But what we focus on in our vision statement is increasing in vibrancy, engaging multiple generations, respecting the diverse community that is around us, and then also sharing the treasured doctrines of the Christian church, and also sharing uh, God's unconditional love. So the hope is definitely that people get really excited about coming together, seeing the possibilities of sharing space together, and also sharing a little bit of food and drink together. We're going to be sharing in Holy Communion, or what Catholics often call Eucharist, doing all those things together. So hopefully this will move people beyond the traditions that have served us really well for a couple hundred years now, but help us to see the possibilities of working together more with neighboring churches that are part of our own church denomination,
Right.
and also reaching out to folks who who don't know Jesus and Jesus teachings very well yet, let alone the increasingly weird way that United Church people do things. And it's okay that we are weird. That's actually a beautiful thing, but
Uh-huh.
that is also a change. From what I understand, the United Church of Canada was established to be at the very center of of Canadian culture, but Canadian culture has kind of moved on, and now we're no longer at that cultural center, if you can kind of picture that. We're not marginal by any stretch of the imagination, but we're not the center of things either. Um, when decisions are being made in Streetsville, and no one's calling me up because they just need to hear from the local United Church minister about this. Believe it or not,
Right.
once upon a time, that happened. But more and more, Christianity is just one of the religious options in Mississauga and in Streetsville. We have
S-
to get we have to get used to that new reality and embrace it, and share in the wonderful things that do build up beauty and peace, and meeting human need all around us, and hopefully by just us church folks gathering together, we'll increase that energy, and we'll be able to see greater possibilities beyond our buildings.
So you shared your vision statement quite clearly. I'm wondering how familiar are the other 8 churches that are joining this celebration with you? How familiar do you think they are with your vision statement, and how familiar are you with the vision statements of those other 8 churches?
I don't think they know our vision statement very well at all, and really I don't know their vision statements either. One of the characteristics of the United Church of Canada is that congregations have a fair amount of autonomy. The national church, which is based in Toronto, has their own vision statement. That is, you can Google this. I don't think I'm gonna get it quite right, but it's something about deep spirituality, bold discipleship, and daring justice, I believe. And that's something that we are continuing to live into as well. I think that's the thing that probably unites us more than our congregational or individual community vision statements. But like I said before, Streetsville United Church has been around for a very long time and has a very specific micro culture. And so that vision statement that I said before, I'll say it again: to be a vibrant, multi-generational congregation within our diverse community, sharing God's truth and unconditional love. That's unique to us.
Mm-hmm.
Something that resonates in the hearts and the guts of people who are part of our community right now. Hopefully that will resonate with more people, especially in the Streetsville neighborhood. But that's unique to us. I can't really tell you what what the vision statements are of the individual statements are of these other congregations around Mississauga. But I know they have them.
Right.
I know they have them, and they have their own strategic plans. Though, another way that we're trying to grow in our creativity is to collaborate more together. We lost a lot of that over the pandemic. We intentionally siloed for a while, just to keep each other safe. But we have to relearn collaboration between congregations. And also, we're doing a lot of the same things together. We have an awful lot of the same struggles, a lot of the same opportunities too. So while I can't say what the vision statement is for, I don't know, Eden United Church or Aaron Mills United Church or any of the other congregations in Mississauga, I know they have them. They're probably pretty similar to what we have. But each congregation, each community of faith is unique in its microculture. And that's true for us.
Right. Well, not surprisingly, time has flown and we're getting to the end of our conversation, though I'm really happy that we learned about this sort of coming together of the 9 churches. Happy anniversary, by the way. And I wish you a successful event, and I hope everyone comes together. And your vision statement certainly feels very inclusive, while also recognizing this changing world where it's not so. It's much more diverse, I think, than 100 years ago. So, a couple things. I mean, if people wanted to learn more about Streetsville United Church, where should they go?
I guess y'all are hearing this online already, so you can go to our website. That's streetsvilleunited.ca. We also have a YouTube channel with video recordings of all of our Sunday morning worship services, plus a little Bible podcast I do most weeks. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, Streetsville United Church. Just search for us on those platforms, and you'll be able to find us.
Okay, well, Joe, one last thing that we do here on Constraints, which we'll end it with. I'm going to start a sentence for you, and I'm going to ask you to finish it for me. So,
all right.
Creativity is the very work of the triune God with all of God's creation. Excellent. Well, Reverend Joe Hopkins, thank you very much for joining me on Constraints.
Thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun, Lewis.
Constraints the podcast receives resource support from the Alan Slate Radio Institute at Toronto Metropolitan University and is co-produced by Louis Moroney and Mahir Corey. Please subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts to automatically be notified when a new episode is posted. Also, follow us on Instagram at constraints_podcast. Constraints the Podcast is brought to you by Hi-Fi Handiwork. Sound advice.